Rinkrats, what's happening? We are back again. It's only been 7 days this time, and welcome back. Good to see you all. And it is the same quad, if you will, same folks here. We've got the Bard, Sean Fitzgerald, and Eric Andrews. What's happening, guys? How are you?
All good.
Good. Sean, you are so well dressed for the occasion. And tell us more. You went to the game last night. You look superb.
Who are you wearing?
Yeah.
I've got a Reebok practice jersey that I bought, I believe, at the NHL draft in 2017. I believe it was at the United Center. I also bought this Reebok vintage-looking hat there. I think I spent like $30 between the two of them. It was so choice.
I love the curved brim.
Oh, yeah. I'll bring out some curved brims. Don't worry. I'm doing hat a day, Bard. There'll be some curved brims for you.
I love it. I'm a follower.
That's awesome. Well, Sean, A plus get up, A plus lineup. I like that you're still doing the hat a day thing on Instagram. That's great. My hat is North Bridger Bisons. This is a college buddy of mine, Matt Skoglin, who has a bison ranch in Bozeman, Montana. If any of you are looking for grass-fed natural beef, it's really, really good stuff.
I love bison burgers.
I would like to. We'll talk offline, but my dad would be interested in a hat like that, so I'd love to get him one. He loves bison.
You got
not
it.
Eating them, actually like looking at them.
You got it. I love it. At any rate, Eric, how are you? All bison and flat brims aside, Eric, what's going on?
Not too much. Enjoyed seeing Marc-Andre Fleury get his 552nd win the other night. Big shout out to the Flower. Well deserved.
Very special.
I've got my Au Naturel hat on tonight, so
quite lovely.
Yeah,
it is. And the Bardo, I'm sure you're excited about the Chiefs moving on, having their first road playoff game in the Mahomes era, which is insane to think about.
It's crazy.
Very cool.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's talk about a team right now that is not playoff bound and hasn't been for some time. Our beloved Chicago Blackhawks. But there has been a lot that has happened in the week. Most notably, our buddies got extensions. Jason Dickinson and Nick Foligno were extended by the Blackhawks, and they both got 2 years. And I believe did they both get 4.5?
Dickinson was 4.25 for Dickinson.
4.25 for Dickinson and 4.5 for Nick Foligno, well ahead of market value. And that might scare some people. But Eric, what say you about these two contracts and what does it mean?
I like them for a number of reasons. Just looking at on the ice, both of these guys have been pretty solid this season. Dickinson probably more so than Foligno, but given Foligno's age, I think everybody would pretty much say he's been surprisingly good as well. Of course, off the ice, they've both provided some pretty valuable leadership. Obviously, that's kind of what Foligno is known for, but Dickinson, I think, is kind of more that quiet type of leader, lead by example, and that's definitely been pretty valuable for the team as well. So I think just what they actually offer to the team, it makes a lot of sense. And then, looking at a lot of people have been saying, well, why not trade these guys? Why not get picks for them? What is a third round pick really going to do for you at this point? I mean, they already have seemingly half of the picks in the coming drafts. So, a third round pick when you already have 7 picks in the first 3 rounds or whatever it is, that really isn't doing a whole lot to help you. I mean, yeah, sure, it's another pick, but we've talked about it before, how you really have to spread out your prospects so you're not bringing everybody up at the exact same time and creating a log jam and creating contract issues and all that. So I mean, just for me, is it more than market value? Sure, of course, but they also have to reach the cap floor. There is that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just as far as what these guys offer both on and off the ice, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think the 2-year term for both makes a lot of sense as well and really fits into that timeline that Kyle Davidson has really been establishing here.
100%. I think the third round for either of those two is generous at that. I mean, I don't even know that's like best case scenario is a third round pick or return. Easy decision for them. Mm-hmm. That's great and real money for them to return. Shawnee, are you feeling similarly on that take?
Yeah, I am. And I know people were upset. I think Mark Lazarus had a guy who tweeted at him that he was done after they signed Jason Dickinson. and I know you put out a really good tweet about it too, Andy, that the price, don't worry about the price. Neither player is going to get the AAV anywhere else, so on and so forth. Right. And I agree with that because, like, if you look at the free agent market, understandably, you want to add some talent to Bedard, but you're going to have to grossly overpay right now for the current situation of the Blackhawks. Younger players are going to require a longer AAV. So, like, in addition to like $5 million, you're going to have to spread that out for 5 or 6 years or $7 million or whatever it is. And you don't want to jam up your cap space that way because the timeline that Davidson's setting is in 2 seasons from now, so 3 years.
Yeah,
they should be able to be competitive and probably go hard into free agency, looking for something to help this team take the next step. And if you pay guys now to just become like the 10th seed in the West or whatever, it's screwing you in the future. So the short-term deals are perfect. Like Eric said, and I'm sure Bardo's going to reiterate, they bring value on and off the ice. Dickinson's been a pleasant surprise. He has the highest goal output of his entire career this season. Foligno's, mentor, a captain. He's a good interview. And he takes the foot, like, if the young kids are going to get questions and something like that, but Foligno's going to be there taking the hard questions, giving the answers that the media is going to want to hear and stuff like that. So I like the deal.
Yeah, and Bardo, you've said this before. The summer crop of 2024 UFAs is not that desirable.
Let me actually correct you. It's the summer crap of free agency. It is garbage. I mean,
not good.
The next thing that they should be looking at are guys who are going to be free agents in 25, which is what we talked about recently, is that group. And like, let's figure out, it doesn't hurt to make a phone call and say, hey, are you planning on resigning? Is he available? I mean, it's worth checking in. And then, in 2025, when they're free agents, if they do make it there, then maybe you can, revisit it if you can't acquire them via trade. But we talked a little bit offline about, the timeline, and this, they have a timeline, they have a plan. Sure, it can, change slightly if somebody becomes available and they get somebody at a good value, like somebody in that upcoming 25 free agent class. But as of right now, the plan is that maybe they spend in 25 or 26 when those free agent classes are much, much better. There's no reason to just spend money for the sake of spending money. I just think they should just continue along the path. If there's somebody they can get on a 2-year deal or whatever it is, a short-term deal, do that. And also, just going back to the deals, I mean, they still also have cap room. Like, if they want to, over the trade deadline this coming, what is it, March? It's March, right? The trade deadline in March, they can still acquire a bad contract and get a sweetener or two. I mean, they can still get picks that they didn't get from not trading Dickinson as well as Foligno. So that's still on the table. They have the room.
That's a good point. Yeah,
a reclamation guy too.
What's that? Say that again.
Piggybacking off what Bardo just said, maybe not a pick sweetener, but like a reclamation guy sweetener.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Now the next question, and a lot of people are buzzing about this, is Petr Mrazek next?
Yes,
it should be 100%.
Yeah, Eric, you think so?
I was surprised that Kyle Davidson wasn't waiting for him at the bench after the shootout last night.
Yeah,
I mean, he has been. I mean, obviously that's not actually true, but I mean, he's been outstanding of late. I mean, we were talking before we started. He almost stole that Winnipeg Jets game within the last week, and I mean, they're literally the top team in the league right now, and he almost shut them out. I mean, he has been not only keeping them in pretty much every game that he's playing, but he is single-handedly winning games right now.
Right. Well, it's not only that. It's just like, Arvid Soderblom I don't personally think very much of him as a goaltender. I'm not saying he's like a bad person or anything. And I know I say that a lot whenever I start talking about a guy that I just start,
you start disparaging somebody. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I always start with, not a bad, let's clarify that with, he's not a bad person, which is probably a bigger insult than anything else. but it's you've got two goalies in the prospect system that are quite good, that are your tabbed goalies for the future. And but to that end, they're just not going to be ready. They're not going to be available for some time. And this is really the tank thing. The tank mode is over. Like we're not doing that anymore. And I think that the general consensus is that people want the Blackhawks to improve year by year by year by year by year now. I mean, you have so many stockpiled picks, and we're going to get to that in a little bit, what they do with all those. But there's just this just go in and lose games and don't build up your lineup. You are going to need a goaltender for at least 2 or 3 more years that is formidable. Mm-hmm. And you kind of got him right now. And you've got him in a good position in the sense where, there's certainly players that go cup hunting, and they want, I want to win a cup. I want to win a cup. But there's also something to say for, I actually just want stability in my life. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be moving all the time. And if I can get paid and stay put, if you're Nick Foligno and so many people were saying, you don't want to go for a cup. Yeah, he's probably tired of thinking about this all the time. Where am I going to be next year? So that was probably easy for him. And Mrazek is it just makes too much sense. Johnny, do you feel that too?
I do, 100%. And piggybacking off what you said, I've been saying piggyback a lot. Camesso and Adam Gajan, however.
Gajan, you had it. Don't back down.
Had it. God, Sean, that was a good one.
Adam Gajan.
Good job.
Thank you.
Your original instincts were there.
Those guys obviously aren't going to be ready, and like you said, Soderblom, I think experiment's over, and we're seeing it this year because, like Eric said in a previous podcast, he hasn't played unless there's been a back-to-back as of late. Like it's been Mrazek every night. Yeah. And
was Soderblom slated to go tonight, even though the game got postponed because of weather, or do we even know?
I don't know.
I don't think we knew.
Yeah, we didn't know. And Mrazek might go. Oh, who knows? I don't know. Anyway, I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
But he's also said, like, Mrazek has said he's finally healthy. Yeah. Which has given him peace of mind. He enjoys being with the Hawks. Like, he enjoys being with the team. I think as much grief as we give Jimmy Wade and stuff like that, I think he's clicked with him, and things are working well for him. And he faces a lot of shots, too. Yeah. I think he had 37 or 38 last night. So it makes sense. They need, like you said, they need an NHL goalie for the next couple seasons. And then you can filter in whether it's Camesso or Gajan or whoever else, or Weeks, who's been playing well down in Rockford, according to Ray. He's also spent some time in Indy. Like, until some of those guys are ready, you need somebody to make NHL saves and keep your team in it.
Yeah.
I think after, was it Saturday night's loss? Luke Richardson had to go to the team and kind of say, hey, look, I know we're playing a certain way and we're not getting the results we want, but keep playing that way, because their heads were down. Without Mrazek in net, it would have been way worse. Mm-hmm. Like, they would have been getting blown out of some of those games. So I think he needs to stay.
Yeah. And the free agent crap in the summer of 2024, Bardo. Goaltending, I don't even know who's out there. Do you have any idea?
Offhand, I don't either. But quite frankly, why bother? What are we going to do? Just keep playing musical goalies? This gives them stability. It shows that there's a little bit of a commitment, and there's a process and a plan in place. We'll just leave him there for a couple of years. And who knows, maybe one of these guys is ready by the time his contract goes up, and then maybe Mrazek will still want to come back, and maybe for a year or two, and maybe a little bit cheaper. Who knows? But that's always possible.
He's at 3.8 per now. Would you sign him if he asked for 3 years? Would you give him the 3 years? I would.
You would or would not?
I would, because I just don't. Again, I don't know. If it's 3 years and it's 4 or 4.5 for 3 years, I think you have to consider it, because there's no Camesso won't be ready next year. More than likely, maybe he'll be ready the year after that. And then if so, then you have a healthy goalie competition with a guy that is going to be making an entry-level salary of below $1 million. And then if you have a higher paid veteran goalie that he beats out, then that's what happens. And then Gajan comes in after that. So I don't know. So I don't think 3 years is unreasonable. Eric, what do you think?
I don't either, because I was going to say, if he's a guy that gives you quality play almost every night, I mean, I would take it because, quite frankly, if you look at contenders, I mean, some of them are paying goaltenders like $10 million a year, which I just wouldn't do in this day and age with the cap, and it's barely moving up. But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a really good value there. So,
yeah, Eric, do you think so? I mean, if a 3-year sticker on Mrazek, if he asks for it and it's reasonable, do you think that that's reasonable for both sides, or is that too?
I would be hesitant about a third year. Especially now with these contracts for Foligno and Dickinson, it really seems like 2 years is what Davidson is really looking at. I mean, 3 years wouldn't be the absolute end of the world, but I would be hesitant to go beyond 2, just for some of the reasons we've already mentioned. But looking at the other UFA goalies available this summer, you've got Matt Murray, Ilya Samsonov, Chris Dreger, Marc-Andre Fleury, Capo Kakinen, Kevin Lankinen. Like there's not a whole lot out there.
Bring Lankinen back.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I mean, you look at some of those names and it's like, well, they already know that Mrazek works for them. He is, familiar with the system, familiar with the team. Clearly is comfortable here. So why bother, bringing in one of these other guys that isn't going to give you any better of play than he is right now anyway. So yeah, if it was me, I would say 2 years, maybe around that $4.5 million mark would make a lot of sense.
And that garbage class is going to give him leverage. So
true.
That's the thing. He's got leverage on that one.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, we'll see. We'll see what they do with Mrazek. I mean, it would be a good move to keep him around. And the Hawks have time. I mean, that's one thing they do have. So
and plenty of good seats available.
Plenty.
I mean, here's the other thing. I would go 3 years, and I totally hear you, Eric, on the length of it. 3 years without a no movement or no trade clause. So if in that third year, that last year of his deal, they try to trade him and maybe he's playing well and somebody needs a goaltender.
Yeah.
I mean, I would try to avoid, the Stan Bowman, no trade clause thing that he loves to do.
There's definitely a good blueprint of what not to do.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
That Stan left behind. So that's good. Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see it play out. That's for sure. But I don't know if you're going to find a goalie that fits, as Eric said, in the 2 year period that they've got remaining. That's pretty critical.
Mm-hmm.
So, at any rate, fascinating. So let's talk about the Blackhawks draft picks, their upcoming draft picks, and they're going to have some good ones, and they're going to have so many of them. And I want to touch base on this tonight because Connor Bedard does need some help. Now, there are things, that were beyond his control this year. There was Taylor Hall going down for the entire season, who was supposed to be a mentor of sorts and on his line. Corey Perry obviously is no longer part of the Blackhawks through whatever incident happened there, and he might jump onto another NHL team at some point. But the Blackhawks have all of these picks, and the picks that they've got this year, the 2024 draft, they've got 2 first-round picks. One is going to be a lottery pick. One is going to be whatever Tampa Bay's pick is, which could be in the teens, which is from the Brandon Hagel trade. Then they've got a second-round pick of their own, and then a second-round pick from the LA Kings and the Vancouver Canucks from various trades that they've made. 2 third-round picks. Then in 2025, they've got 2 first-round picks, again, for the second year in a row. One will be their own. One is from the Mrazek trade with the Maple Leafs, or is that from another trade? I always goof that up. Is that from Lafferty or Mrazek or
the Jake McCabe, Sam
Jake
Lafferty.
McCabe, the other Toronto guy. There we go. Then they've got Dallas's second-round pick, as well as their own second-round pick. Then the following year, 2026, they've got 3 first-round picks already on the cards, as well as a first-round pick. So you got all these high picks coming in. You've already had a few high picks, the last couple of years. Are any of these picks flexible when thinking about the future, when getting NHL-ready guys now via trade, when there are going to be a lot of teams out there looking for additional lottery tickets? And what is more valuable, these lottery tickets or NHL ready talent within the next couple of years. Because you pick all these picks, you use all these picks. These are probably kids that are not going to be to the NHL for 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just reality. And if you wait 3 to 5 years, all of a sudden that's the first third of Connor Bedard's career. Now, I'm not saying that's the wrong way to go, depending on how all these other picks pan out. But I don't know, Sean, what say you?
I think asset acquisition, whether it's through free agency, the draft, or trading of these picks is the way to go in terms of, I think he has options, is what he's given himself, is what I'm trying to say. So they have plenty of cap space, so if he wanted to add talent to the roster, they can spend money, which they're doing, overpaying veterans. Obviously, Davidson spread it out, so he has assets. It's not all in one draft. So if, for whatever reason, let's say Frankie Nazar and Oliver Moore sign in the same year and they're productive right away, maybe you need to augment that team with another veteran guy. You trade somebody. You trade some of the picks you have. Because you're not going to make – I don't think they're going to make all these picks. I'll be honest with you. I think the amount of contracts they have to keep on, the amount of reserve contracts, and like you kind of been alluding to, Andy, there's other ways to acquire talent besides via free agency,
Right.
Especially with teams that are going to be up against the cap at some point or are going to be in a roster crunch where, hey, it's what happened in Tampa several years ago. Like they couldn't sign Palat. They just they lost those guys via free agency. And what we'll talk about later with Stamkos, like at some point teams are going to have to, like, we can't keep all these guys. We got to make a trade. And the Blackhawks are like,
Right.
Here, we have the assets for it. We have the space to re-sign the guy long term. Here you go. We'll take him, and it'll help augment our roster and keep us moving forward. So that's what I think. They're not going to make all these picks. I think they will trade some of them.
Yeah, what do you think, Bardo?
Yeah, no, I don't think they're going to make all these picks either. And like I said, I mean, whether it's the 25 or 26, free agent class, I mean, if the second they hear that if somebody of value is available, that's in their prime, because obviously you're not going to trade a first round pick for a 35-year-old, but unless it's Connor McDavid. But if there's somebody that's available, Mason McCavish says, I want to play with Bedard or somebody like that, or they're just, they just flat out become available because they're not re-signing, then yeah, these are assets that you have between the prospect pool and the draft picks that you can basically go and get and put something together. That's what teams do. I mean, goes back to what Eric was saying last year. It's about collecting assets, and they're still doing it. And this is what you build your system. Well, I don't even want to call it a farm system because it's both farm and draft pick, but this is what you build your system to do, to make these kind of moves and put yourself in that conversation. So I think I don't think they're going to make all these picks, but I think somebody somewhere someday is going to become available and they're going to use one or more of these picks.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what would frustrate, I wouldn't divert paths, geez. Sorry. It's just the thoughts aren't coming to me as quickly as they used to. I would not change course on this year's draft. I wouldn't move either of the first two picks that they have this year. I don't even know if I would touch the second round picks. I think it's more for 2025 and 2026. Wouldn't you say?
I agree.
Yep.
Eric, is that what you're feeling? I mean, I still think you stockpile now and then assess in a year or two where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, I would generally say that's probably the correct course of action. I mean, of course, if someone, a solid player is offered to you, then of course that can change. But yeah, I mean, I would have a very difficult time seeing them trading either of the first picks this year. Maybe the Toronto one next year, if you need to. But yeah, I mean, we saw it, in 2023. Davidson said, we're probably not going to make all these picks, and they didn't. Whether it be, I think they traded one to get Corey Perry's rights, and they traded a second round pick to, I think, move back to this coming year and stuff like that. So, I mean, whether it be, just kicking the can down the road or, packaging a couple picks to move up or whatever it might be, as the draft board stands right now, it's probably not going to stay that way. but I don't think you're going to see them just selling off these picks in order to buy up a bunch of talent either.
Yeah.
And we know that they have the number one prospect pool or their top three, whatever that's worth to anybody. But I mean, I think the bottom line is that we can look at it and say, you know what, they're still probably short on some star caliber forwards. So this is the year to basically try to, continue to build up the system. And then, like you said, let's look at 25 and 26 to maybe, package some of those picks if that opportunity exists.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I mean, you need to wait till your team's ready too. I mean, I just don't, before you start seeing what's out there. I mean, I don't, for those impatient Blackhawk fans, the last time the Blackhawks went through a true rebuild, they caught lightning in a bottle. Like they absolutely did. I mean, they got 2 premier forwards in back-to-back drafts. But those trade, and then they had Seabrook and Keith, who they had drafted, Dave Bolin that they had drafted, that panned out probably a little bit earlier than anyone had anticipated. But then it did take, the trades for Patrick Sharp. I think Versteeg, was traded. He was a trade as well.
Yeah.
Bufflin was homegrown. That was a steal. I think that was just pure luck. I mean, he was a late draft pick.
Yeah, wasn't he like a 5th or 6th rounder?
Yeah.
Yeah, like 8th round or something.
And at the time they were so good, it didn't matter that Antiniemi was their goalie. But they did wait and say, okay, Havlat doesn't fit. Marian Hossa does. They had to pick up John Madden. They had to pick up Sobel. They had to pick up a lot of other guys. And then, because the results were so good, the drafts were bare for a number of years. And you want the team to be competitive without having to go through that too. But you need to wait and find the time. And clearly this summer's not it.
Yeah. But I think also those timelines that we talk about, or similar to what I think it was Lazarus who put in his article, I think he laid out all the different times. It was a good piece, but I mean, it's so hard to predict that. I mean, who would have thought Vlasic would have been as good as he is this year?
Yeah,
I mean, you assume that he's going to continue to grow and get better. We're starting to see improvements of Korchinski. So, I mean, maybe he takes a giant step forward. But, it's like, and hopefully next year they'll get another premier forward. And then it's like, okay, maybe this timeline moves up. Maybe they do make a big trade over this coming summer, not a free agent pickup, but maybe it's a big trade. I mean, the other comparison that you can look at is like with the Rangers, when they just did that rebuild after they traded like Ryan McDonough and all those other guys. I mean, they just, they had a bunch of guys, but then, out of nowhere, they decided, okay, well, we're going to go after Panarin because Panarin wanted to play in New York.
Sure.
They had the cap space and all that, and just the timing worked out. They sort of accelerated the rebuild. So, and who knows if that was the right thing to do or wrong. I mean, they've been, a good team every year, but who knows? I mean, there's different ways of doing it. So, and I guess the timeline, like literally the product on the ice is going to determine the timeline.
100%. I mean, I guess the hope is, everyone hopes the Blackhawks are going to be a lot better next year. And maybe they'll make a move or two to acquire someone that is really going to make a significant contribution. But I'm also, I feel confident saying that I would, smart money says that Kyle would not part on any of this summer's draft picks to do that. Maybe something in the future or, as we talked about acquiring older contracts, but, we'll see. And the development of these young players, it takes a lot of time, and it also is so unpredictable. Like everyone's hoping that Korchinski next year is going to be his year where it's like, okay. And it might not be, it might still be a couple years away.
Lucas Reichel is the prime example of that.
Well, on Reichel, I mean, that is one thing I would put out there if I'm KD, I'd throw his name out there this summer and just see what the deal is, see if there's any nibbles or anything. And I don't know. And then, I mean, if Reichel's back next year, he's back next year. And, if he has a similar season next year, then for sure, like this is, this guy's going to be in Europe by the time he's 27 or 28 permanently. But it's, we can go on and on about Reichel, but that's just a really...
We had a comment or two about the Hawks not turning into Edmonton, I think is what he was alluding to.
Yes. Yeah, Kevin Thomas.
But
Kevin, thank you for listening and commenting as always, my friend.
And Edmonton, I think, is a different situation than the Blackhawks were because they had all those high picks and they had to pay Draisaitl, they had to pay McDavid, and then
Right.
they made bad investments in when Peter Chiarelli was the GM. He just paid anybody with a pulse,
Right.
and setting them up to be in salary cap hell for a number of years. Then Ken Holland came in and stuck with the same philosophy. We're going to pay Evander Kane, and we're not going to invest in defensemen, but also like Edmonton's biggest failing too is they haven't been able to draft guys to fill in holes. Like they're top heavy. They have all their talent up top, but you need guys like we were just listing off, like the Dave Bolins, the Troy Browers, the Andrew Shaws. Yeah, the secondary guys who can give you scoring. And if they become too expensive, then you let them go, and hopefully your system and your drafting is well enough that you can just supplant them with younger talent. Yeah. And I think when Davidson does trade some of these picks, he's not going to mortgage all of them. Like he's still going to keep picks in reserves because even on those cup teams, like Stan Bowman gets more credit than he deserves, but he still went out and got Johnny Oduya for 2 second-round picks, I believe. So, like, you're still going to need some flexibility to acquire talent to augment your roster in the future. So, but yeah.
No, I mean, I don't necessarily. I mean, yeah, we bag on Bowman. He did make a couple good moves, but I don't know.
Not many.
not many.
I was going to say, can you list them?
Well, I Michael Frolik. He acquired Michael Frolik for Jack Skilly. That was probably some of his. That might be his best work.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Oduya.
He probably. I don't know. Stan might have a picture of Frolik somewhere on his wall and just be like, "Yeah, that was my move." So Oduya and a few others, but at any rate, so yeah, it should be interesting. I mean, a lot of picks this summer. Those picks will probably be made, and then you can assess your prospect pool, which seemingly after June, come July of 2024, the Blackhawks prospect pool will be amongst, if not the best in the league. Just overloaded with talent. Let's talk about some. Let's go around the league a little bit. Obviously, Bedard skated the other day. Skated a couple days ago with a fogger on. Everyone freaked out and went, "Oh my god!" And some wise guys were like, "Yeah, well, it's his jaw. It's not his legs. Of course he can skate." Sure, got that point as well. People comparing him to saying, "Well, it's not as cool as Chara and Brassard. Those guys broke their jaw and then they played in the next game." Yeah, they also did not have. It was also a deep playoff run, not an 18-year-old kid. He also had reconstructive surgery. They did not at the time. So apples to oranges with all those fun things. Bottom line is everyone is very excited because Connor Bedard hopefully will be back soon. Now, not soon. I mean, like 4 weeks minimum soon.
Yeah, February, March timeline is what.
Yeah. But let's aside from that, that's kind of the last little Blackhawk note that we wanted to touch base on. Let's talk some hardware. We went kind of Calder crazy last week. And Sean indicated, all you Minnesota fans out there, yes, there is a possibility that Brock Faber will be a Calder candidate. No, he will not be a Norris finalist. He will not be a Hart finalist. And
Pro Bowl MVP. Here we go.
He will not be Pro Bowl MVP. He will not be the next mayor of Minneapolis.
Will he be on the next season of The Masked Singer?
So anyway, Eric, have you been following kind of the NHL's elite? And what do you think as far as Hart Trophy candidates? I've got a few things in mind, but wanted to give you the floor for a second.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of ruined it for me there. I mean, I would say Brock Faber for sure. He's a shoo-in, but no, I mean, I think the discussion right now, I mean, obviously what Nathan MacKinnon is doing is incredible. I mean, he's almost, I would say, single-handedly dragging the Avs to the top of the standings, but in a lot of ways it kind of feels that way. You've got Nikita Kucherov, who almost actually is single-handedly keeping the Lightning relevant. They're right on the cusp of a playoff spot. I think they're on the outside looking in right now, but or I think they might have the 8th spot in the East. But
it was like 2.5 weeks ago. or maybe even 3 weeks ago, where he was like 12 points up on the next guy, and McKinnon now is tied with him.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And then, of course, you can never count out Connor McDavid, and he and the Oilers are obviously scorching hot right now. So, yeah, I think to me it probably comes down to McKinnon and McDavid. I would say, just based on what we're seeing right now, if you called it today, I think it would be McKinnon. But I could certainly see McDavid catching and surpassing McKinnon by the end of the season too.
Gotcha. Any talk about Austin Matthews? I mean, obviously points wise he's back, but he could be just Rocket Richard Award winner.
Yeah,
34 goals. Sam Reinhart having the year of his life. He's got 32 goals right now.
It's been good.
That's totally outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
I would put my chips in McKinnon right now if he keeps his pace, and I love Nikita Kucherov. There's something about McKinnon's game that just seems that much more special.
He's a center, and he's also, en route to having, obviously his career year, but it's also like that home point streak. I think it's like close approaching a record.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty impressive. Oh, speaking of Sam Reinhart, he just scored a few moments ago. So I guess that's 33 goals now.
He's a pending free agent, right?
Is he?
Is he? Yeah.
I have no idea. So
Here we go, Davidson. Let's go.
We got one.
8 by 12.
8 by 12, no movement clause.
Yeah, 8 by 12, no movement clause in San Jose. Is anyone following the Norris Trophy race? I have not been. The only name that pops up is Brock Faber because of Minnesota and a candidate. The leading point getter, I think, is Noah Dobson or something amongst defensemen.
I was going to say Noah Dobson and Luke Hughes are two guys that definitely are going to be in the conversation.
Quinn Hughes.
Quinn Hughes, not Luke Hughes. Quinn Hughes. I always get my Hughes messed up.
A lot of them.
John Hughes.
Yeah. Cale Makar is obviously going to be right up there. He's benefiting from, McKinnon's productivity as well, but I would say those guys. Rasmus Dahlin is having a good year, so he's certainly up there. He's got a lot.
Makar has 42 points in 40 games. They might just hand it.
He's so good.
It's just it's just absurd that they might just like we just said, might just hand it over to him and call it a day.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. Makar has 52 points in 40 games. Wow. Ooh. As does Quinn Hughes. Okay.
What does Brock Faber have again?
He has 2 goals and 19 assists.
What's Calmacar's TOI? That's what I want to know.
He does lead all rookies in assists now. I will say that. I will also say that Connor Bedard got hurt, 2 weeks ago? And he was 10 points up in the rookie scoring lead. Now we're 2 weeks later, and he's still 8 points up. So when that kid comes back, it still could be his to lose. We're going back to the Calder. I know because our guy's in the Calder race. But when he comes back, it still could be his to lose. What about goaltending?
I gotta believe it's Hellebuck and Thatcher Demko are probably the two guys that are most deserving.
Yeah. Aiden Hill having a hell of a year.
He's been hurt for a while though.
He's been hurt though, yeah.
That's true. He's actually only played 15 games. Scratch that.
Hellebuck
is probably Joey Decord, dark horse. Joey Decord.
He's just kind of
late coming on. Yeah.
I was going to say Shesterkin's been terrible, so for him at least. So, I really think it's a 2-horse race. I can't even think of a third.
No.
And it's kind of funny. Both those guys you named, Bardo, both their teams are the tops of the league. So, good goaltending pays the way.
Yeah. Well, I think it seems like coach of the year this year could be north of the border between Rick Brownis and Rick Tocchet. Battle of the Ricks. We talked about it last week. The fact that both Winnipeg and Vancouver, where they are now compared to where they were last year, is outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
So I think either of those two coaches, coach of the year honors could come to fruition.
I'll give you like a pseudo like third guy, dark horse is Tortorella. He's got Philly playing well.
Yeah,
We probably thought Philly would be a lottery team, and they're right in the middle of it.
That would actually be a lot of fun.
And Tortorella had to manage a lot of off the ice stuff as of recently, so I think that's a feather in Tortorella's cap.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, how do you pronounce Andre Torigny? I mean, I remember we got quite the chuckle on a podcast in September when we saw all these people predicting that the Coyotes were going to be in a playoff place or in a playoff hunt, and lo and behold, here we are.
Guilty.
Totally.
I led that charge.
Oh, I laughed my head off. I was like, what is that? Oh, they suck. Playing in a college rink. So he's done a hell of a job there.
He has. I was wrong on that one.
Yes.
I'll take the L on that one. I did not see that.
Anyway, one more thing we just wanted to touch base on, a little bit of a shorter show tonight, folks, but that's what happens when your team is not doing great and you go two straight weeks.
This show might be shorter than the shootout last night. The 9-round shootout that the Hawks
just barely
endured.
Just barely.
I don't think could buy a goal.
Last week we touched base on the IIHF's decision to remove Team Israel, to no longer invite them to the World Championships. And a week later, this morning actually, that has been reversed. They are now welcome to play. Still some language in the decision, Eric, as you touched on earlier, which is still unkind, it seems like, and still, I don't know, people indicating they don't want them to be there, which is very sad. But Israel, they're getting their skates on, and they're going to be playing in the World Championships. So glad that decision was reversed. Obviously, the outcry was enough. It was a lousy decision in the first place. Didn't make any sense. And was very sad, but it's reversed and let them play. So, any thoughts on that, folks?
I applaud the NHL for actually standing up to it and really,
good one, Varda.
Stepping forward and making hell out of it. I applaud the person who wrote the op-ed piece in the Toronto Sun, I believe, over the weekend that compared it, which is what we did also last week, which was to the, what happened, the tragedy in the 72 Munich Olympics. They gave in to the pressure, clearly. I'm not sure they really, really believe that they're wrong in this situation. They just kind of, decided, okay, we'll figure out a way to make it work. But it's unfortunate. But I guess we all can be happy that the Israeli national team is going to be allowed to participate. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's great news. Great news. Well, the All-Star game is almost upon us, and I just want to throw out one more thing. Eric is a big collector, both cards, memorabilia, and also jerseys. And to that end, Eric, your thoughts on this year's All-Star jerseys? I certainly have opinions on them, if anyone's seen them.
Yeah, I mean, they are clearly not intended for anyone that is in a generation, including adults. I mean, they're not good. They're not good.
Yeah, that was Eric phrased it as nicely as he could without saying the reality is that they are deplorable. They're awful. They are awful. You have an all-star game in the mecca of hockey in Toronto, and you screw these up. You could have done so many different things. You could have made them retro, vintage, done all the amazing things that you do with Winter Classic and Vintage Classic jerseys, and you just threw out what looked like space suits from Mars. I mean, they look like they're made by Stalin Dean. They just look like just a horrible. I don't like.
They remind me of when people wear their like jazzercise in the 80s.
It's
like,
not, yeah.
Bright colors and stuff
it's
like that.
like the people. I can't think of anyone who likes these jerseys other than maybe the band Flock of Seagulls. I mean, it's just ridiculous. If you haven't seen these folks, go check them out. I really hope these don't sell. Like, I hope that they fail, because I can't, like, if that's the direction we're going in jerseys and uniforms in the NHL. I mean, it's
the NHL led by Gary Bettman is not really known for its marketing acumen.
Whose idea were these? I mean, they're just hideous.
Yeah,
and that's kind of sad because Bettman came from the NBA, which I've mentioned before, but like the with their jerseys, like their city series is the NHL gets this garbage out there,
yeah.
and the hockey sweater is so iconic, and like the unveiling of the third jerseys we've been seeing lately, and like the Boston anniversary jersey, like there's been so many good jerseys / sweaters that have been coming out, and then we get like rainbow bright almost uniforms out there.
I mean, how many times have we said, "Oh, this would have been the perfect day for the NHL to put some games on," and they just don't, because like the NBA or the NFL or baseball, it's not on. And we're like, this is such a missed opportunity for the NHL. They've done it so many times. They're the biggest marketing morons I've ever seen. They have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah. So folks, for those of you that are viewing, if you're on YouTube and you're looking, if you can see our screen right now, there they are.
You know what they look like? They look like the Teletubbies.
I was thinking Teletubbies or Care Bears.
The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers go to the NHL. I mean, it's just
Care Bears. I like the Care Bears better.
I mean, look at these things. I mean, this is just like, it's a bad practice jersey. It's like, I mean, what did these things cost? You know, I mean, what are you selling them for $10? I mean, this is just
$89.99.
Oh man, to have a game in Toronto and that's what teams are wearing. Ugh. Well, shame on you, the NHL. That's collaboration with fashion brand creates the perfect complement to the young NHL talent. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing because I think people's eyes hurt. And, that was just a mean thing to do, was to share the screen and make people see those if they haven't seen those. So sorry, folks. But the NHL All-Star jerseys are foul. So, well, anyway, that's all we got. Any shout outs tonight, guys? You have any last thoughts, things to watch out for? You want to give shout outs to any friends, family, hockey players, anything fun? Great. well, Rink,
I'm very happy to be here.
Merry
New Year.
Merry New Year. Well, we'll be back. We'll be back probably next week with some more thoughts. And hey, you never know what's going on in Blackhawk world. Things can change on a dime. Maybe Mrazek might sign. Hopefully there won't be another injury to speak of now that some of the guys are coming back, and maybe some more updates and some more fun.
Maybe they'll sign 10 free agents next week.
Ooh, what fun.
Yeah. Radis will score 15 goals, so he'll be close to 25, like I predicted.
There you go. Well, enjoy the rest of the week. Happy hump day. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. On behalf of the Bardo, Sean Fitzgerald, Eric Andrews, I'm Andy Campbell from the Rink, signing off. We will see you all soon. Go Hacks.